am Roland Alemania, and I'll quickly explain the main method, authenticate user method of our system. And let's start with the main method. And this method is the starting point of the program. And the first thing it does is call the authenticate user. If the login is correct, the program continues, and if not, it stops. And next we have the while is active loop, and this keeps the system running until the user exits. And inside the loop, the value of active menu decides what to show, and if the value is equal to 0, it shows the main menu, and if active menu is equal to 1, it shows the product management menu. So the main method acts as the controller that keeps the program running and switches menus. Now for the authenticate user method, this method handles the login system, and the user gets 3 attempts to enter the correct credentials. If the user and password match, it returns true and shows a login successful message. If all attempts fail, the system makes sure the only authorized user can access the system. So this method simply makes sure only authorized user can access the system. And that's my part, a quick overview of the main method and the authenticate user method. Thank you.
Greetings, I am Alyssa Ashley Arbeltran, and today I am here to discuss two of the methods that were used in our program in order to make it easier for the user to navigate and access. So first we have the public static void show main menu, and this particular method was employed in order to organize all the data necessary for user navigation. So employing the switch case, we've assigned numbers to particular values which represent particular parts of our program. 1 for product management, 2 for sales transaction, 3 for view transaction history, 4 for exiting the system, and 5 for initializing dummy data. And following that, we also have the public static boolean confirm exit, and this particular method's main responsibility is just to ensure that if the user desires to exit, then they may do so by choosing two particular values, either yes and no. Yes, which will return the value of true, and no, which will return the value of false. And otherwise, if there are any other answers, the program will alert the user that they have inputted invalid data, and as long as the data remains not yes or not no, then the condition will repeat. That is all. Thank you.
My name is Arthur Mafred M. Cabrejas, and I'll be talking about the Show Product Management menu and the Create Item method. The Show Product Management menu method is the main control center for all the product-related actions. It displays the menu option and wait for the user to enter a command depending on the choice. It directs the program to add, view, update, or delete a product, or return to the previous menu. If the input isn't within the valid range, it simply notifies the user and shows the menu again. The create item method handles the process of adding a new product, making sure every input is valid before saving. It first checks if the maximum number of products has already been reached. If there's still space, it asks the user for the product's ID, name, price, and quantity. Each input goes through validation. Empty entries aren't accepted, IDs can't be duplicated, prices must be valid, non-negative numbers, and quantities must be whole numbers. If any input is invalid, the method gives an error message and reprompts. Once all four values pass the checks, the item saved into the array. The storage counter increases, and the program prints a confirmation showing the newly added product's detail.
Dangal greetings, I am kaibigan Jade Martin and I will be talking about the modify item method. The modify item method lets the user change the details of a product in the inventory. It starts by checking if there are any products stored. If the inventory is empty, the method stops right away. If products exist, it shows the list of items and asks the user to enter the product ID they want to edit. When the user finds a matching ID, the user can choose what to change, the product, the price, or the stock. The method checks the input to make sure it is correct, such as avoiding negative numbers or wrong formats. Once the user enters a valid update, the product's information inside the 2D array is replaced. After that, the system shows a message confirming that the update is successful. If the product does not match any item, the method informs the user that it was not found.
Dangal greetings everyone, my name is Jenny Samya and I will be explaining the delete item method of our code. So, firstly, the method first checks whether the use slots is greater than 0. If no products exist, it tells the user there's nothing to delete and stops immediately. If items are available, it calls the CList method. This lets the user see all existing products before choosing one to delete. The method asks for the user to enter the ID of the product they want to delete and reads that input. It loops through the array and compares the user's input with each product ID. If it does not find any match, it later reports that no matching entry exists. Then, when it finds a matching ID, the method asks the user to confirm whether they really want to delete that product. This confirmation step will prevent accidental deletion. Then, if the user confirms, starting from the index of the item that was deleted, all the data below it will move one step upward, like the item at index 2 will move to index 1. This will keep the array organized and avoids empty gaps in the middle. Then after shifting, the last slot in the array is set to null. This will prevent leftover or ghost data from remaining in memory. Then the method decreases use slots by 1 to reflect the updated number of items in the inventory. Then the method prints a message saying product entry deleted successfully. If the user cancels it, it prints a message saying product entry deletion cancelled. Finally, after the loop finishes, if no product ID matched the user's input, the method prints a message saying that no matching product entry was found. This will let the user know even when the delete action cannot be completed. And that is all for the delete item method.
Hello, I'm Jules Martin Rabino and I'll be explaining the CList method of our inventory management system. The program first checks if use slot is 0 or less. If it is, that means there are no items in the list. It prints item list is empty and immediately exits the method. These lines print a horizontal separator and the column headers. The headers include item number, product ID, name, price, and quantity. The lines make our output look organized and easy to read. This loop goes through every field row in the items array. Each row contains items and their names.
The code prints the item number like number 122 and etc. It uses a loop to add extra spaces so the next column lines up perfectly. The total width of this column is 8 characters. The product ID like P001 is printed. Spaces are added until the column reaches 16 characters wide. This prevents shorter or longer IDs from making alignment. Product name is printed next. It is padded to a width of 22 characters. If the name is longer than 22 characters, the code still prints at least one space to avoid breaking the table layout. The price is printed. Extra spaces fill the rest of the 16 characters column, keeping alignment clean. The quantity is printed at the end of the line. No padding is added because it's the final column. After listing all items, the method brings another separator line. This makes the output visually complete and organized. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Hello, I'm Paul Vincent Paz. I'm one of the programmers of this project, and I'm here to explain the following methods: the perform sales transaction method and transaction history method. The first method we'll be discussing is the perform sales transaction method. So this method first checks if there is a valid product entry in the array by checking if the use slots variable is less than or equal to 0. If it is less than or equal to 0, it will display an error message, and then it will pass through a return statement which will end the method execution and return back to the first method that called this perform sales transaction method. After that, we call the clist variable, which will display a list of the products in a tabular form. We prompt the user to input the ID that of the product they want to make a transaction with. We initialize this no match boolean variable, and then we take the user's input and store it in a variable. Now we loop through the array that stores the products, and then we put a check here if the user's input equals to an item in the first column of every row, and then if there is, we set that boolean no match to false. If the if statement returns true, we begin the transaction by first temporarily converting the product price into a double and then multiplying that by the input. Then we reduce the current product stock by the input amount, which will be the purchase amount, and then we save that change in the main array. Then we display that the transaction was successful, and then we generate a transaction ID, and then record the relevant data in the transactions array, and then we print out a receipt. So if there's this variable concurrent transaction slot, so if that is less than or equal to 9, we just increase that. So that will be used in the transaction history method, which will be discussed later. So if it is greater than or equal, or if it is greater than 9, we just return it back to 0. Then we have this transactions made variable, which we increment after each and every transaction, which handles the transaction ID. So here, so if a match was found, then we exit here. So here it breaks the loop early if a match was found, so it will not iterate through the other other columns. So if there were no if no match was found, it will just display this error and then return to the original method. Here we have the transaction history method. So this method first checks if the transactions made variable is less than or equal to 0. So that will mean that there has not been a transaction made in this session. So that if that returns false, we will enter the main method. So the main method consists of a header and the main function. So the main function will have iterations equal to the length of the transactions array, which is 10. So inside the for loop, we store the first column in each row, which contains the transaction ID. So we check if the first column in each row is null. So that means that it's empty, so it will not display anything. So if it isn't null, we will display a numbers, so it will be clear for the user. Then we display the ID of the transaction. We display the product ID that was used in the transaction, and then we display the total amount sold and the total sales. The current transaction slot variable is used to determine which row it will be displayed in the transactions variable or array. So when it reaches an index of 10, it will return back to 0. So that means that any further transactions will overwrite the older ones starting from the very first one. So that will be at 0. So for example, transaction 1 will be overwritten by transaction 10. Then transaction 2 will be overwritten by transaction 11, and so on and so forth. That's all.
Dangal greetings, I'm Sobrepeña Kenneth, and now today we're going to talk about the dummy data initialization. Now let us proceed. So in this part of the program, we have a method called confirm dummy data method. Its job is simple. Ask the user if they really want to create a dummy data before the system make any changes. This message is displayed to the user. It warns them that creating dummy data will fill the database with test entries. It also clearly reminds the user that product entries will not be overwritten, but the transaction history will be overwritten. Now, after showing the warning, the method waits for the user to either type yes or no. Whatever the type gets converted to lowercase to avoid issue with capital letters. Now, the program checks the user's answer using a switch statement. If the user types yes, the method returns true, meaning the program is allowed to create dummy data. If the user types no, it returns false, meaning the operation will be cancelled. If the user types anything else, the program prints invalid input and also returns false. This ensures that the system only proceeds when the user clearly confirms the action. So, in summary, confirm dummy data method acts as a safety check. It prevents accidental overwriting of important data by making the user confirm their choice before dummy data is generated. Now, let's take a look at a method called Initialize Dummy Data method. Now, this method is responsible for automatically generating dummy products and dummy transaction history, so the system has sample data to work with. Okay, so the first part of the method adds 10 product entries into the product array. Now, each product is created using the method add product to array, which takes 4 values. Number 1, a product ID. Number 2, a name. Number 3, a price. And number 4, the quantity in stock. Now, these entries act as sample products so the user can test the system without manually typing everything. Now, you'll notice the list includes items like laptops, keyboards, headphones, and even a potato for testing purposes. Below that, the method adds 10 sample transactions using add transaction to array. Every transaction includes a transaction ID, the product ID being bought, the quantity purchased, and the total cost. All these entries use product P001, the laptop, and simulate multiple purchases of the same item. Now, these dummy transactions overwrite any existing transaction history. You'll also see a comment noting that this will overwrite entries like TR00, ensuring that the history is clear and rebuilt. At the end of the method, it prints a simple confirmation message, debug data added to relevant arrays. Now, this will let the user know that the dummy data generation process is complete. So, overall, initialize dummy data method automatically fills your system with sample products and test transaction. Now, this is incredibly useful for testing features, debugging, and demonstrating how the inventory system works, all without needing manual input every time.
So for the last part of our video presentation, I'm going to explain the last two methods in our program. Now I'll be explaining the methods add to product array and how it works inside our system. So this method is responsible for adding new products in our inventory. But before it starts anything, it firstly checks if the array still has available space by comparing used slots and total number of rows. If the array is already full, the method stops and returns to false. But if there's still available space left, it proceeds to store the product's ID, name, price, and quantity in the next available row inside the array. Before placing the data, it updates used slots so future entries will be stored in the correct position. So, simply put, this method ensures that every product is added by the user and is saved properly and organized in the inventory. It's used whenever someone chooses to select the add product option in the program. And for the next and the last method that we'll be tackling is the method add transaction to array. This method takes care of recording every new transaction made inside of the system. This method works by inserting the transaction record into the transaction array in the position indicated by the current transaction slot. After storing the transaction details, the slot automatically moves forward. If it reaches the last slot available in the array, it wraps around back to the zero. It then creates a circular buffer allowing the system to keep recording transactions without crashing when the array becomes full. So every time that new transaction is added, the method also increments transactions to keep track on how many total transactions have been processed. So, in short, this method is used whenever purchase or sale is recorded, helping the system maintain the ongoing list of transactions in the efficient and organized manner. And that's all for my part. Thank you.
Greetings everyone, my name is Jan Dorsey Company. Today I will show our program. First now, let's run it. 1. It asks the user to log in. So our password was admin. And now, the main menu consists of product management, sales transaction, view transaction history, and X system. Now I will choose the product management. Now if I add product and type the ID, which is the P006, and then the project name was USB cable. It will eventually go through this program, and I will type the price, which is a 50, and the product quantity was 50 on stock also. Now if I get back to we will see a product added successfully. This is how our program was flexible, because if I even tap the number 2, it shows all the product, example the product that I add earlier. And if I type the number 3, it updates the product. I will choose the ID of P006, which we asked with 50 stocks. Oh shoot. And then product name was USB cable. It also updates the name and the price, $50, and its quantity 50. And this is how our program runs with flexibility. And because of this, it helps all the entrepreneur to type the stocks to be, easy to access, and giving the fact that some of the business only writes the stocks, or puts all the uh, uh, materials needed. With our program, it makes all the entrepreneurs life more easier. Because of arrays, all the product that we needed was typed into one. And because of this also, our program is more useful, uh, more useful in entrepreneur some. And that's all. I'm Don Larson Completo again, signing off.